And as you heard from his intro, my guest today on the Paracave podcast, well, he's known as a professional golfer, former professional golfer. He's also the host of How Good Is Golf on Fox Sports. But he's also a massive Parramatta Eels fan, which I love. So, welcome to the Paracave podcast, Mr. Paul Gow.
Mate, enough of the mister. It's good to be on, Troy. I listened to you. I've known about you with all your para gear around. I thought I was the biggest tragedy, but you win hands down.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. We'll kick off with what is the Paul Gow story? Where did you grow up, and what was growing up like for you as a kid?
Yeah, well, I grew up at pretty much the early life. I was born in Coonabarabran, out in the bush, one of six kids. I'm the youngest, so it took mum and dad six goes before they got it right. But we moved to the city when I was about 6 months old. We were in town, and we moved to North Rocks. But at the
Okay.
lower part of North Rocks, right at North Parramatta, and that's where it all started. Went to Northmead High School there. Pretty much a dropout. I was terrible because wouldn't pay attention at school and hit golf balls all afternoon and all that sort of stuff. With the dreams one day to be a professional golfer. I tried rugby league, believe it or
Yeah.
not, at school. I played a little bit of soccer, but I tried rugby league. Went on, they put me on the wing. Big dude hit me. I just walked off, and the coach goes, "Where are you going?" I said, "Not for me." I said, "I'll just hit golf balls for a living." But that started my fascination with the game of rugby league. Actually, my next door neighbour in North Rocks, he was the one. He was a big para fan. My family weren't totally into rugby league. My dad played a little bit back in Coonabarabran, but not much into it. So when I was about 5 or 6, my next door neighbour Freddie Morton, he was a massive para fan. He'd every time Para would win, he'd do a streak up and down his hallway. So that means that I learn about that. So that's what I did when Para was on, and just fell in love with him. Obviously, back in those days, it was awesome to watch Cumberland Oval, and I went to Cumberland Oval a couple of times before they burnt it down. And I fell in love with the game. I think it's one of the greatest sports of all time. I actually get shitty at this time of the year when there's no rugby league on.
Yeah, nah, fair enough, fair enough. What was Cumberland Oval like? Because I never got there myself. I only seen the pictures and heard the stories about it, but being the old dust bowl that it was, what was the Cumberland Oval like?
Well, I have an atmosphere I can remember. Like I was pretty young, really. Like when you go to, somewhere like Combank now, or you go to Lang Park, or well, it's not Lang Park anymore. It's what's it called now? Jeez. Uh,
Suncorp.
yeah, Suncorp. Like there's a real atmosphere, and I remember going there and all the parochial para fans yelling and screaming, and you sit on these old sort of wooden seats and stuff like that, and like the hill that's where I first went, and as a kid you run around trying to catch the ball and doing
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff and tackling, and but I was a bit of a nerd of a kid too, so I watched a lot of the game too, but it needed to be upgraded. I can see why they burned it down. It was pretty crappy. And then we had a pretty good stadium for 20 odd or 25 years until the new one. But it was cool. Like living up in North Rocks, well, the lower part, in the Spears Road, which it's the last street in North Rocks before you get North Parramatta. You can pretty much walk to the stadium from there. It was pretty cool. And everyone I went to North Rocks Public School. Everyone was pretty much a Parramatta fan, so that was cool too. So I'd have the big bus ride to school of a daytime, with a mate of mine, and all we'd talk about was footy on the weekend and all that sort of stuff. So it was quite funny actually. There was a mate and we both stuttered, like we couldn't,
Okay.
like our speech was terrible. So it was a 25-minute bus ride, and we talk about footy, but we'd only give out like the first 15 minutes of the game because we were stuttering so much. So thank God I don't do that anymore. But it was Cumberland Oval was cool. It was a really good experience.
Yeah, no, I have always said that para fans are smart. We win the comp in '81 and burn down the stadium, and means you just have to get a new one built. So certainly some really good times in those early days. What are your memories of those early days, those early grand finals, and being a kid growing up supporting the Eels? It must have been good times.
Yeah, well, it's fun now, right? Looking back at it, when Fox Sports play the old games, and I remember when I first moved back to Australia, it was about 2010, 11. and we're about to go out for a barbecue with some friends. And I hadn't lived here for 15 years, sort of come back for a month at a time. And I turned on Fox Sports, and there was like the 81 grand final. I was like, oh my goodness. So we couldn't go to the barbecue until it was finished. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
we're not going anywhere. But the memories are awesome, especially the grand finals. It's a big day, and it was a long day. I like the 3 o'clock start.
yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the late start, but I can understand it from a broadcaster's point of view. But watching our team, like Ray Price and Peter Sterling and Eric Groth and Mick Cronin and Ella and Brett Kenny, like it was just a pack of superstars in there that they were all like mates, and they all played for each other. And there was, it was a hard game. Right now, like the game right now is a tough game, no doubt.
Yeah.
But they were pretty tough back then. A lot of skill level, and watching, Sterling Kenny go at it was just amazing. Like just to watch them and craft their stuff, and then from Jack Gibson, being the coach that you just looked at and you were sort of in awe of him. I actually got to play golf with him years
Okay.
later, believe it or not. When I turned pro, I played with him in a pro-am at New Brighton Golf Club, and it was one of the highlights of my life actually, is to
Oh
play with him. He
yeah.
was actually partially blind. It was pretty blind. He had a guy would line him up and hit shots, and he was a man of few words. He's obviously aging by that time, but it was a fantastic experience because I'd watched him through his time as a coach, and one of the best ever, isn't it? You obviously Bellamy and Bennett are up there, but Jack Gibson was pretty cool. So just to get to meet him and play 18 holes of golf with him was pretty damn cool. I asked him some questions, but I pretty much shut up after a while because he was way smarter. Like he just come back with great answers, and so. But that time was fantastic. I guess that's what you hold on to as a Para fan, is you hang on to the 80s. And people lay shit on me that the last 30 years, why do you back the Eels? Why don't you find a real team? All this sort of crap. And really, it's what's in you. It's you live and die by every game they play, and watching those guys back then and the three-peat and just so prominent every year. Your team was in the finals every year, which was so bloody good. But to watch them, Mick Cronin toe poking that ball, and how he'd stand up in a tackle and offload, and no bastard would, could tackle him to the ground, was just fantastic. So it's such a clear memory. I've done a lot of brain cells in my time, but I can remember a lot of that stuff.
Mick Cronin, he's a champion player, and he probably doesn't get the raps that your Kennys and Sterlings and Price does. He's sort of he's obviously a champion player, but many people think that he should become an immortal of rugby league. What are your thoughts on the immortal debate? I mean, because I'm disappointed as a Para fan that not one of those 80s players is an immortal of rugby league.
Well, you know what? It's always an opinion, right? It's like an asshole. Everyone's got one. So,
Yeah.
it's all an opinion. But when you look at that team through the 80s, they're a real team. There wasn't really a standout. Sterling and definitely Kenny were great players, but they weren't a standout. They were sort of like they were a team that played together. I'm not from a team sport, never really played a team sport, so I can't comment on that team atmosphere inside the locker room, all that sort of stuff. I only go by what I hear, but that just looks like there's no individuals. And I think sometimes that debate about the immortals, they're the individuals that stand out in their team, right? They're the ones that pull them along. I think everybody in this team were a leader, like from Ray Price doing what he was doing, from Ella, with his brilliance. I guess that's would be my own analogy of it. Watching Andrew Johns through the prime and cutting us up there in 2001, like he could do it. Where those guys were just all a bit of a team. I don't know. I don't know if that's a great analogy, but I think that's why why we haven't got an immortal there. And I hope, in the sense of immortals, that they really do think about, they're just not going to throw somebody in there because they won a few titles. I think it's something you should cherish. Like, I hear the word great a lot, overused in the terminologies of sports. I think the immortal has to sit above great.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's a good way to say it there. That, as you said, those that are immortals probably not so much carried their team, but stood out in their team.
Yeah, they certainly
And
did.
as you said with Parramatta, they had a number of them that helped every week. So, um, do you have a so then? Is it difficult to support the Eels from overseas
Yeah, it was. It was hard
when
back
you're
then. So
overseas?
96 was the first time I went over there. But I was fortunate enough in 95, I played a pro-am with the great Johnny Gibbs from Manly. So,
Oh yes.
and then started to play a bit of golf with Fatty. So the
Okay.
three of us are close mates. They've both caddied for me at different times. We've got some funny stories with those guys caddying for me at different times when we were in Australia. Fat used to come over to the US and spend some time with us at the end of the tour, him and his wife. So it was quite amazing. I hated Manly so much, and then two of my best mates are Manly players and good Manly players, right?
Yeah.
So Fatty was working at Channel 9, and he got the producers there to put me a whole heap of tapes together and like VHSs back then, and
Yeah.
then started into a disc. So every month they would send me the games so I could rewatch them. I know the result.
Yeah.
So the answer to your question, yeah, it is hard to follow. Not like these days; it's so bloody easy. I don't miss a game when I go head to the US to do some work or around the world. I don't miss a game. It's awesome. The live streaming stuff. So, but we may do somehow. So they'd send me over like the state of origins and all that sort of stuff, and I'd do benders. I would just watch, game on game on game on my weeks off and not miss a thing. And actually, funny enough, I was going through some old things. Now we live back in Australia that we'd brought back in old tapes. Just to get them converted over to like a hard drive, and
Oh
there was
yeah.
a bunch of these old games in
Yeah.
there. So I'm
Yeah.
going to get
Oh
them changed so I can watch them again. I know Fox Sports will have them, but yeah, it was pretty cool. So
yeah.
it was
Nice.
good because we had a few guys over there that were rugby league supporters. They weren't all just AFL supporters. So Rod Pampling, Queenslander, John Sendon. But my biggest rival was Peter Lonard, who was a massive Bulldog supporter and still
Okay.
is. So
Yeah.
I love when they go shit.
Yeah. Well, that's fair enough. Well, that sort of probably leads me into my next question. Who, as a Parramatta fan, um, who's the favourite team that you'd love to beat? Who's the biggest rival as a fan?
Yeah, I guess it changes from year to year. I reckon for me, I don't. I reckon I've got such an admiration for all these rugby league players that play. They train their ass off. They put their body on the line for entertainment for us. To go and sit in the stands and we're entertained for a couple of hours. And so I look at all the teams. I actually don't dislike a team at all. Like the
Okay.
Bulldogs because of Peter Lonard. That's the
Yeah.
only reason because you know. I wanted them to get beaten because of him. Yeah, it was great when they lost all their points and they went from leading to 42 points. I think they had up or something. They went to zero. So that year, what I did is for Lona, because I forever playing practical jokes on him. I wasn't actually on the PGA tour. I was on the secondary tour that year. So I sent out. It was 13 weeks to go. I sent out to my mate on tour, who was the Nike rep, actually 13 wooden spoons, and every week he'd put a new wooden spoon in Lonard's locker, and he was getting so freaking frustrated. And then at the end of the season, and plus at his house in Orlando, because we lived about 5-10 minutes from each other, we went and spread, me and the kids went and spread a whole heap of wooden spoons around the house and in the backyard and everywhere. He'd open a door and there'd be another wooden spoon. And then at the end of the season back in Australia, once again, I wasn't there. So I had someone in the presentation presenting with a big mahogany wooden spoon with a little plaque on there, wooden spoon winners, Bulldogs, blah, blah, blah. So I had a bit of fun with that. Well, that was good. That sort of kept us grounded when we were over there having a little bit of a, um, you know, rivalry with the teams. But I think it changes from year to year with the play, like what teams that you dislike, or
Yeah.
it's normally personal. It's only about your team and something they've done, or they've won off a forward pass, and you're like, they're shit. So but I really tap my hat off to all the players. It's great. I watch every game on every weekend, and if I miss it, it's taped, and I'll be up until midnight to watch it. So, they're all good.
Yeah, I think not so not so recently it was Melbourne for me. Recently now, being a Para fan living in Penrith, it's Penrith. So and them having so much success. But I mean, they are a champion team. But my favourite game of the year is Parramatta and Penrith at Penrith. So
Yeah, I've
um,
been to one. I've been to a couple actually, and they're interesting. They're interesting. You walk in with your blue and yellow on, and the abuse that you're getting is outrageous. It's I remember taking we'd come home mid-season. My daughter's about 6, and so I've got 2 daughters, and my wife's a Para fan. Like, we went to high school together, and that was a given. You had to be a
yeah,
Para fan. She was anyway. So my daughters are Para fans. So I took my oldest one, and we walk in. We're going to the other side of the ground, and the abuse that we got. I'm holding a 6-year-old daughter's hand. The language was outrageous. It was terrible. To get over there, and she said to me, she said, "Dad, they're not too happy with us." And I said, "Yeah, I think we wore the wrong colours tonight." So,
yeah. Well, not much has
made
changed, I don't think, at Penrith with their fans. I don't think, to be honest. But
bit of passion.
yeah. Well, one of my favourite sledges is as you know, like wearing your Parramatta gear at Penrith. There's like, oh, go back to Parramatta, where you belong, or something like that. It's like, oh, living in Penrith, I turn around and say, well, I only live 5 minutes away, so.
Yeah.
And they say like, well, what are you wearing that crap for? It's like, well, I turn around to them and say, well, what are you wearing that crap for? So it's
They've done
always,
well. It's great to watch good teams like that. It's like Broncos in their time, and the Brisbane Lions in their time. It's great to see teams like Penrith, and obviously it was tough to watch at the ground last year, but they were just the better team. They were, they're well versed. Their depth between the juniors are ridiculous. Ivan Cleary and the team out there and have done an amazing job. And even if you don't like them, you've got to applaud how well they've gone about it. And it's not easy to three-peat, and they could four-peat the way they go. They could keep
yeah,
going.
yeah, no, definitely. Just on the overseas thing, can you recall of a place that you've seen a Eels jersey or some memorabilia around the place
Yeah,
overseas?
my house actually. I had a sign made up in my office in my house in Orlando that said, "If you're not a Parramatta supporter, don't come in." But yeah, all the time you always see different people. Chicago was an interesting area because a lot of Australians were up there for some unknown reason, and Para supporters. So yeah, just on the random, you would see LA more than anything else, I
Okay,
guess,
yeah,
that I've seen Para jerseys and hats and different things. But yeah, Chicago, I remember playing there. I was actually in contention, playing well. And next thing I hear this, "Go Para." And I'm looking over, there's thousands of people there because Tiger Woods played that week. And I'm like, can't see a hat or anything, but it was just a random out of the middle of nowhere.
yeah.
My caddy at the time is a guy called Dave Nielsen, who lives on the Central Coast. And he's a big Para fan too. And so he pretty much got the job because I'd had a bunch of Americans. One guy had moved on, and then I come back to Australia, and Dave was there, and I said, "Mate, who do you follow in rugby league?" He said, "Oh, Para like you." I said, "Well, good, you got the job." So it
That's
was awesome.
handy.
And it
Yeah.
to be honest, it gave us something to talk about in between shots. We
Okay.
would talk about, who was coming up in the reserve grade, who was coming up in the jersey flag, who was. So just instead of thinking about golf the entire time, we were talking about how good or bad Para went that week, on results, and we'd look at all the stats and all that sort of stuff. So it was great having Dave on the bag. It was like being at home. Yeah. So when he left, actually, I struggled with caddies, American caddies, because I just didn't have a lot to talk about. I got into the NFL a little bit, but not a lot.
Yeah.
So it yeah. So I haven't got many sort of vices in life, but it's obviously playing golf, but that was my living. It's Parramatta Eels or rugby league and horse racing. So they're it. I don't buy fancy cars. I don't buy fancy clothes or watches or anything like that. They're my things. I love doing those 3 things. So pretty
Some
simple
would
bloke.
some would probably say that that's probably a maybe a bad thing, like to concentrate on something else rather than your game at the time, I guess. But I mean, you're saying it was a good thing
That was a
for the
great thing.
Perps.
Oh no, fantastic. Yeah. Golf's a weird game. I don't know if you've ever played it, but
A few
it's
times badly.
yeah, and it just gets in your head and all that sort of stuff. So you've got to get all that crap out, and it's fun. It's walking up and just you could then concentrate. Well, we train to focus, so that's what we do within practice. Is focusing in on that 1 minute and that 30 seconds that you're actually going to go and pull the trigger and hit the shot. So to take your mind away midstream is really good, and having a good caddy, they can bring outside agencies into calculation for you and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's actually a really good thing. And any sports psych you see, they actually applaud it.
Yeah, nice, nice. Well, as an Aussie living in the US, we see now the rugby league going over there in round one, going to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
How do you think that'll be received over there next year in round one in
Oh, the
Vegas?
first thing they'll be amazed is that no one wears pads.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the thing. All my American friends, when I showed them a game, oh man, they're not wearing pads or a helmet, man. Yeah, wow, they're tough. Wow. So, and I've taken a few of the Americans that have come out here. I've taken them to games, and so they're amazed with that. 330 million people over there. I can see the point now, trying to get into that market, but I don't know if it'll happen really. I know there's a little pods over there like cricket in spots in New York and around up north there. They have a bit of cricket here and there. I don't know if rugby league. It's just a bit of an exhibition sort of game type of thing. I don't think you'll ever get a team in there or a franchise as they have their NFL, their ice hockey, their basketball, their college ball. They grow up on these things. That's what the amazing bit when Val Holmes and Jared Hayne went over there. You got to understand their culture over there. There's a lot of kids, and I mean a lot of kids, unlike here, that born in these shitty little towns, and their way out of that town is possibly in sport. So, if you show any ability with NFL or hockey or basketball, it's your way to get out of that town, to get to a bigger town, to go to college. And then the college system is ridiculously good. They're so professional. So they're born into this. So, they know all the plays, they know how it was a big effort for those guys to go over, and because they weren't born on it. They were born on our sports like cricket and rugby league and AFL. They're our national sports, and over there, their national sports, they work so hard, these kids and these people, players, men and women, to get out of their towns to get into these teams. So they want it more. They're so hungry, it's ridiculous. I've never seen hunger like it. There's a secondary tour over there on the US tour called the Corn Ferry Tour. It was always named the Nike Tour, and they're the hungriest golfers in the world because they're not playing for a lot of money. They're trying to get to the big tour, the PGA Tour. So they work so damn hard, and they are so focused. So it's a difficult one for it. But so, hey, great that they're going over there. The boys will get to see Vegas. It's a pretty cool town. Vegas for me, I'd go there every year to play a tournament. We'd start a thing. You'd stay off the drink. You'd stay away from the tables. You'd just go back there when you wanted to have a drink and have a bit of fun. But it's Vegas is 3 or 4 days for me, and that's enough. So, but anyway, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know what the outcome's going to be. Who knows? Is it a tourism piece? Is it they're going to take a couple of games across there per year? Is it a broadcasting? I don't know. So, but good luck to the ones that get the trip.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's it for sure. Now, speaking of golf and rugby league, last year on the show that you had in 2022, the golf show on Fox Sports, you played around with Clint Gutherson and Mitch Moses.
Yeah.
How did that go?
It was good. Good. I
What are
played
they
a little
like
bit
as golfers?
Yeah, I know they're both really good golfers, actually. Two different types of golfers. I played with him a few times before, and I played with RCG also, and he's a good golfer too. He smashes it. He's a big unit, far out. He can smash it. So we played a few games before that, and a couple of years of it, and here and there randomly we'll play a couple of times a year, and it's quite amazing, their personalities. You've got Clint Gutherson, who could run through a brick wall, who's got the highest energy, who's never had a golf lesson in his life.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Um, and he just does it his way, but he wills that golf ball into the hole with enthusiasm and confidence. And Mitch was got a beautiful, actually a really good golf swing, and doesn't know how good a golfer he is.
Okay.
And he plays. He's actually a better golfer than Clint, but he doesn't shoot the same scores as Clint. Now, if you could put the two together, you'd have a really good golfer. I mean, a really good golfer.
Okay.
So I think Mitch is maturing, and he's not as hard on himself on the golf course anymore. He's now a dad, and got other responsibilities, and he's probably not as hard on himself on the golf course. But they're good fun guys to play with. I don't ask them anything about footy really. We play golf and we talk about other things, and I don't want to be a fanboy at all, so I don't ask those questions. I'm one of those fans that just go and sit there and enjoy the game. I'll yell at the referee occasionally here and there, and the TV, but yeah, it's good to know those guys. We're talking about professional sports and different things, and they're good guys, and they're what the thing is, if everyone was the same, it'd be a pretty boring world. So, and they were good in that episode. They were funny as shit. They were, it's amazing that the crap they lay on each other. And I was hoping they did that day, and they did. It was actually, when they play together, they lay more shit on each other. It's very funny.
Yeah, nah, it would be great to be there for sure. What about some of the past players who are really good? Who are really good golfers that you've played with in the past? I know Sterlo's a keen, avid golfer.
Yeah, there's still he's a good golfer. Yeah, he plays well. He's always been a single finger handicap, and he's a member up at Castle Hill, and I was a member there for years. So I got to meet. It's pretty surreal actually to meet one of your idols and play a bit of golf and consider him a mate. And when I first started the show about 6 years ago, I actually rang Pete. I said, "Mate, can you help me out? I'm going to do this show with celebs. Would you be my first guest? Because I know stuff all about TV, and I know you do." So the first episode took us about 5 or 6 hours to film. It only takes 2.5 to 3 hours to film, but Pete was very patient with me and helped me out. And he was the very first one. And that first year we only did 10 episodes, and Pete he was leading the nearest to pin challenge all year. I mean, no one was close to him. He'd hit a really good shot, and he'd ask me, "Am I still leading? Am I still leading?" And lo and behold, my last guest was Damien Oliver, and Ollie hit it into about 3 feet. So he hit it in a lot closer than Pete. So he was a bit pissed off with that. But no, he's cool. I catch up with Sterlo. He's awesome to play golf with, and he can play. But out of the foot rugby league players, I've heard there's a lot. I'd love to get Kalen Ponga on. He was a really good junior. But I've had Latrell Mitchell on this year on the show, and he got delivered some God-given talents because he swung the club beautifully, and if he put his mind to it, he could be a lot lower handicap. He's like a 9 handicapper, but if he really put some time and effort, I reckon he'd get down to the 2 or 3 handicap. And for a big fella, he had a beautiful golf swing. He controlled the ball. He knew a lot about it. He's a really good guess. I know he's probably one of those players we all look at times. He's a bit of a lunatic on the field, but on the golf course, he was cool, calm, and collected. And he hit a lot of good shots. Hit it a mile, but then had feel and a bit of grace. So there's a bunch of. Who else have I had on? Oh, geez, we've had over 80 guests, and I've got to be really careful for this show because I'm such a rugby league fan and nut. Is that I just don't make it all rugby league players.
Yeah, you got to mix it up a bit.
Got to mix it up. So I've got to have AFL. I've got to have cricketers on. I've got to have musicians on, and I'd love to just do a full-on rugby league one because there's plenty of the rugby league players. I believe Weir Hargraves, he's a pretty good golfer. Ben Hornby, I've been told he's a good golfer. I've never met him, but he's a good golfer. I'd love to get him on the show sometime. I've had Pappenhausen. Pappenhausen goes all right. He's a deep thinker about the game. Real strategy type of player, gets his way around, and and maps his way around? Just it's a good question. I'd have to go back and see who I've had. I sort
Yeah.
of lose focus on who I've had because I've had well over 80 guests now. So, but I play with them. It's interesting. With all these professional athletes, they're all egotistical maniacs of some sort. They've got this confidence and air of confidence. I would say that they're pretty damn good, and there's a reason why they've put the time and effort into what they do. So I'm always thrilled to listen to their journeys and how they've got there, and what influences have had. What people have had influences on them, in their careers, not outside of golf. So I really don't talk to them about their actual career of their sport. Like I
Yeah.
had Kelly Slater on this year. I didn't ask him any surfing questions, all about his golf. So it's actually a golf show. So that's what we talk about. So, so there's a heap to go to get on the show. Like all the rugby league players pretty much all play golf. So I'm hoping to get the Travojevic boys on because I know
Oh,
they
yeah.
play golf.
Yeah.
Tedesco brushed me this year because
Oh,
he was supposed to be like the first filming this year, but he something come up. So I'm hoping to get him this year. Him and Mitch play a little bit of golf together. So so I'm hoping to sort of make my way through there. But I've got to be careful. I can't have 15 episodes of 15 rugby league players.
nah, I think what you're going to have to do, I think instead of all these rugby league players doing the boxing these days, I think we might have to set up a rugby league golf tournament or something like that in the off
Could be.
season.
Yeah, not a bad idea that. Yep. I'm sure
Just
they'll
all
all
the
play. They'd all
Yeah,
play. So
yeah, nah, definitely. I think that'd be a great way to go.